The impatient patient, healthcare in the information age. I now invite the chairman of the session, Mr. Raju Venkatraman, founder, chairman, and CEO, Meda Healthcare Private Limited, to take his place on the dais. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Raju Venkatraman with a round of applause. We also have with us the three distinguished speakers, Mr. Om Manchanda, Chief Executive Officer, Dr. Lal Path Labs Limited, Mr. Arvind Shivaramakrishnan, Chief Information Officer, Apollo Hospitals Enterprise Limited, and Mr. Purna Chandra, Deputy Medical Superintendent and Head Clinical Services, Bill Roth Hospitals. Mr. Raju Venkatraman is the founder, chairman, and CEO, Medal Healthcare Private Limited. He's a serial entrepreneur who has built several companies and taken one company public. Mr. Raju has won several accolades and awards, including American Dreamers Award, India Today's top 10 fastest growing companies, Business India's top 100 entrepreneurs from India, and Serial Entrepreneur Award from the Indus Entrepreneurs and from the Tamil Nadu government. Dr. Om Manchanda is the Chief Executive Officer of Dr. Lal Path Labs Limited. He's an alumnus of IIM Ahmedabad and has over 27 years of work experience. Dr. Om Manchanda has successfully led the transformation of Dr. Lal Path Labs in last nearly 12 years from a small business to a professionally run listed company. In December 2015, Dr. Lal Path Labs had a blockbuster listing on the National Stock Exchange. We have with us Mr. Arvind Shivaramakrishnan, who is the Chief Information Officer of Apollo Hospitals Enterprise Limited, and he's based out of Chennai. He's responsible for the IT strategy and implementation across the Apollo Hospitals group. Mr. Arvind has extensive experience in management consulting, business solutions for enterprise-wide applications. His experience in the domain of healthcare IT has spanned geographies across the world. Dr. Purna Chandra is the Deputy Medical Superintendent and Head Clinical Services, Bill Roth Hospitals. He has a lot of interest in designing healthcare units, voluntarily took part in designing a state-of-art hospital for British oil company in Abu Dhabi. He visited various workshops and conferences in developing leadership skills, and patient satisfaction is the prime focus wherever he worked. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have the session on the impatient patient, healthcare in the information age. I hand over the session to the chairman of the session.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and my distinguished colleagues on the dais and off the dais, all the past presidents of Madras Management Association. Congratulations to you, Group Captain Vijay Kumar, for putting together a great conclave. So let's give him a big round of applause. And the entire management team. The topic today, 7 years back, I wouldn't be on this dais. I got into healthcare in 2009. I would have come as an IT guy, not as a healthcare guy. The topic is impatient patient, healthcare in the information age. The brief summary that all of us were given is consumerization of healthcare is gaining momentum. Wearables, most of us have it, and connected sensors are allowing patients to monitor their health and fitness and access to the doctors. Apps are allowing patients to cross-check diagnosis and prescriptions provided by doctors. Simultaneously, there are enough IT companies here. I saw Suresh from TCS and many others who are spending long hours in trying to turn diagnostics and treatments into what we call as data analytics. So the key question is, how do hospitals raise their service level and use digital tools, that's what we will hear today, and skills to provide a better better healthcare experience. I thought My job is to give a preamble to this topic. And health system, which is our human body, collectively 7 plus billion or 6 plus billion in the world, human body is a powerful machine or yantra, as some have called. On an average body weight of 70 kilograms, that is the worldwide adult average that we keep, there is a complex integration of mechanical engineering, chemical engineering, electrical engineering, civil engineering, and now what we call as computer engineering. The human body is just mind-bogglingly amazing. It is an extraordinarily sophisticated, self-regulated, and an automated system. And hence, any downtime is dangerous, right? That's all we are worried about. Another interesting fact is, ultimately, body is 99% of the body is made up of only 6 elements: carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, calcium, and phosphorus. 0.85% is made up of 5 other critical elements: potassium, sulfur, sodium, chlorine, and magnesium. And there are 75 other trace elements which are all extraordinarily important for us to be stable, right? So we are dealing with a very, very complex machine which continues to learn, which continues to perform every single day. And I do want to talk a little bit about, before I digress into the systems thinking, there are enough and more episodes that are being reported where doctors are beaten up by patients. So the impatient patient, to me, as a moderator or chairman of this event, is the scale it is taking. Now, we all have some two-wheeler or a four-wheeler, and how many times do we go to a mechanic for a repair? We do. And is the repair done to our satisfaction? No. They have all the tools, all the trainings, but it doesn't happen, right? Do we start beating up the mechanic? That's a worrisome part that I think in India it's becoming really common. It has happened, and the reason I'm bringing this up is the body is extraordinarily complex, probably over 1 billion times more complex. There are 7 into 10 to the power of 27, which is 7 billion. I don't even know how to say it, not trillions, gazillion atoms in our body. So it's not an ordinary thing. So my broad message is, let's not be impatient about some of these things. It is these doctors who have really spent their lifetime, a structure that has been built to educate them. They learn, they do their very best to keep the inter-system discipline that happens all together. And as we know, most of us are managers here, any system can be thought of as input, process, and output, right? That's all we think. Now, human system can accommodate a great range of input, from air quality to water quality to food that we eat. The input from you, what you eat, what I eat, what somebody else eats in North America is all completely different. But yet, the system gives reasonable output of these 85 plus elements to the body, discharges the waste properly, and continues. So it's a miracle. And even the computer systems that we all deal with today, there are system failures, viruses, cyber attacks. These are all common in our computerized world. The network is slow. All that happens, right? So memory loss in our system is going to happen as we age, and our body has to adapt to a variety of things that is happening. And whose responsibility is it? Is a broader question. From managing your health is whose responsibility? Right? Now, in the past, people said it is the country or the state's responsibility ultimately to manage the health of all of us. Companies have tried to manage the health, and I used to be in Michigan. General Motors, at that time the world's largest company, went bankrupt trying to manage the health of the employees. Cost of healthcare in America is 18% of the GDP, and in India it is 4% of the GDP. The reason I'm putting these facts is I really think that our health system is delivering phenomenal outcome for the cost that it is managing. And new technology, it's always welcome. Now I wear a watch, I count the number of steps that I take, and I want to meet it. Those are great. But will these wearables be able to detect the 85 elements ultimately in the right proportion at the right time? I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure. The complexity, I'm not so sure. Amount of technology that is coming in, you heard about proton that they are bringing in here, whatever they are calling it, an accelerator or not, to cure. But let me talk about care, maintaining your body. The technology that is coming in is unbelievable. Mass spectrometers, genetics, all of these are getting integrated in India as we speak. And all of us are trying to bring in the best of technology to provide the care. But the whole idea is digital revolution is happening. Sometimes too much data can be very confusing, but we have to be careful as to how well we adapt and help ourselves to stay healthy. So long time consumerism. Yes, it's going to happen in healthcare. Doctors were very prescriptive. We want them to become participative. Clearly, trends in healthcare are happening. And I'll give a brief note on the challenges. We talked this whole theme of the seminar. I will digress a bit. Leadership and growth. In Medall Healthcare today, we are the fourth largest. He is the first, the number one in India. They are in north, we are in south. We are 7 years old. They are, I don't know, 40 years old, right? More, 65 years old. We touch 8 million customers a year. We draw blood or do a scan for 8 million customers a year in many rural parts of South India and Jharkhand. I'm telling you, building the leadership team is not easy. People don't want to come to healthcare. Today they are becoming, but healthcare is going to be the future, but professionals will much rather work for an IT company before they can come and contribute to the healthcare. So there is quite a lot of people that we look for with passion, competence and commitment, and many a times they have to learn the health system before they can come and serve the customers. So there is a huge marketplace evolving. I think the integration of IT, digital technologies that we are talking about, all of these are a fascinating journey ahead of us, and it is meant to improve the quality of our life. And I'm sure that my very carefully chosen panel speakers will enlighten you more on this topic. And if needed, I'll come back and summarize. With that said, let me request Om to come and present and talk to us for a few minutes. Thank you.
Okay, very good afternoon, and thanks, Raju, for kind words. And I also would like to thank Aima for inviting me for this session. I'll try and do justice to this topic of the impatient patient. And let me give you a bit of a brief background about myself, which will set the context as I share my learning in this healthcare. I actually started my career in Hindustan Lever. I was in that company for nearly 10 years. In fact, the earlier speaker, Shiv, was my boss for almost 7 years during these 10 years. And then I worked for a couple of more companies like Pharma in Ranbaxy and then Monsanto. But then I made this switch to healthcare. So I'm originally not from healthcare. So I've been in healthcare for nearly 12 years. And I've seen a huge transition from when I joined and what it is today. And I can clearly see that what's going to happen is going to be much more dramatic than many of us in this room can think of. I'll little bit touch upon that as well as to what my imagination on healthcare is going to be in times to come. So what I've done here is first picked up the definition of a patient. And it's a dictionary definition which says the patient actually means able to accept or tolerate delays, problems, or suffering without becoming annoyed or anxious. Today's patient is all but this. It's exactly opposite of what is written here. So that really defines that all of us, and I'm including myself as well, because we are all patients in some ways, we have become extremely impatient. And that's a challenge which healthcare system is facing today, because you're talking to a completely different patient what it is used to in the past. What we are used to now is that we see all kinds of people getting irritated for any amount of delays which are happening. At least in my business, when I say, people say that I gave you sample 10 minutes back, where is my report? That patient doesn't even think that it takes a little time to test that sample. And it sounds very simple that you give a blood sample, you get a report immediately. But let me tell you what happens to that sample. You collect a sample in the morning, let's say 7:30. It reaches the lab. Many times the distance between the point of collection and the lab could be many kilometers. It goes into inside the lab, a small little tube. The patient is now converted into a tube. That sample then has to get split into 4 or 5 parts because it goes into 4 different departments. And then everything converges onto a screen, and then it has to make sense because you can't have a sugar positive in urine but negative in blood. But if it doesn't match, then you have some problem in the report. All that is done, it takes nearly about 6 hours to, let's say, 10 hours. And after that, the company would realize only $500. And the patient then would have plenty of questions, rightly so, because some of these data points may not be making sense either to him or her or to his doctor. Or it may not be making sense from the previous reports. So it leads to all kinds of questions, and then you're suddenly entangled in all kinds of queries back and forth. And I'll come back to this a little later. I have certain examples to share. As a CEO of the company, I am extremely accessible today. I am on LinkedIn, so people can find me out there. I am on Facebook, they can find me out there. My email ID is public, and they only want to write to the CEO. And in fact, in my internal systems, as a customer care, any complaint that goes onto that automatically also lands on my screen. It's a quite detailed mail. But if you carefully read this mail, which is written by one of the customers recently to me, it talks about everything other than testing. This customer books a home collection between 6 a.m. and 7 a.m. The guy doesn't land up there, then his problem begins. He starts calling up, the guy is late 15 minutes. The guy can't read prescription because some of the doctors, all of us know their handwriting, so he can't figure out what tests are written. This guy is getting a little agitated about this whole thing. And he writes a long mail, and now the bottom line he says, my question is, how can we trust when the commitment level is 0, knowledge level is 0, understanding level is 0, and ownership is 0? There is nothing written about the testing quality or what I'm known for. It's all related to service part of healthcare. When I joined this space, 90% of the time will go on to that I get my test results accurate. Today, 90% of my time is actually going into managing patient service levels. And those service levels are related to time. I asked this guy to come and collect the sample at 8 o'clock. He came at 8:15. He's getting very agitated about this. So this is where the expectations are going for our patients. Now, let's go a little deeper into healthcare. Why sometimes people get very, very cagey about, very edgy about this whole thing. Healthcare, unfortunately, unlike any other category, is a need but not a want. I want to go for vacation. I want to buy a car. But do I want to go to hospital? No. It's actually a need but not a want. And that creates stress on all of us whenever it happens. It's an extremely unplanned event. Nobody actually plans for going to go to a hospital. It suddenly strikes you, and that creates restlessness amongst all of us. It disturbs daily routine of not only for the patient, but the entire ecosystem. I'm sure all of us have experienced this, that if somebody is unwell in the family, it's not only the patient, but the entire family gets disturbed because everybody's rushing to office, everybody has a pressure on time. There is no side to outside limit on expenditure. And all of us have experienced this. If somebody gets admitted, God forbid, if all of us experience this situation where one of us has to go to the hospital, you have no idea where that expenditure will stop. It's extremely unplanned. And lastly, there's a lot of anxiety nowadays amongst all of us, and which is building up. Google, this information which is available on the net is not helping. Because if doctor writes a medicine, the first thing that I do is go and find out on the net as to what this medicine is all about. And then finally, the last line is side effects of the medicine. I have plenty of questions for the doctor, why has he written this? If somebody is unwell in my family about certain disease, I'm going onto the Google and finding out whether there's something wrong with the genes in the family, whether will I have this problem as well or not. You will be surprised that people who get admitted in many of the hospitals, their relatives are undergoing a lot of tests because they want to know if they have this problem. It's all because of the information that is available freely, and people want to link it up, or link all the dots. And there is generally high level of stress in society today, traffic, time pressure, work stress, all this is bottling up. And whenever there is an illness in the family, it just shows up on all of us, right? It just shows up in many ways. Now, we get patients which are from infant, child, adults, youngsters, all kinds of patients we get. And I have different experience with different kind of patients, so I've tried to capture that. Many of us probably sitting in this room may fall into this category who are born between 40s and late 70s. We are those guys who have seen healthcare as not as a transaction, but a relationship, right? I want to be heard. I want to see a doctor, personally sit face to face. I want to hear from him, don't worry, everything will be fine. And 20 minutes of chat, but that's not happening today. It's very different. Now, in this, some of us are now little literate about the technology, so we are using some of these apps a little better. So whenever we crack some app, at least in me, there's a huge sense of achievement that I've done something today, right? So we are that category of people. Then there are these millennials who are Gen Y. These are the real impatient patients. Because these are the guys who are on the go. They are extremely, they want everything today. This is that generation which is willing to trust, but they want to verify. They will actually, if they are going to a doctor, they would want to know 20 things about, on the Google, what is the rating of this hospital, what is the rating of this doctor. So these are the guys who are willing to trust, but they still want to verify. This is where this whole information age is catching on. The last category is very dangerous, which is I generation. These are guys, for them, in healthcare, high tech means high touch. They are not the guys who want to sit with doctor for 20 minutes. They want everything online. They want to get teleconsultation. They want to book an appointment. They want to go there and not want to wait for a minute. If they wait for a minute, they will actually tell that guy that, why did you put an app for an appointment? And I don't know how many of you experience, I at least experience when I go to a doctor, even with the appointment, I still have to wait for 1 hour. So that's a different issue. But these are the guys who are not willing to wait. And they want app for everything. For them, life just begins with one app. And I have to cater to them as well. Now, I have patients running from age group of this generation to the other generation. There are many times interaction also between this generation, because some of them, in fact, recently I had a case where his son was sitting in Dubai and writing these mails. I didn't even know. I thought probably he's sitting maybe in Delhi. After 5 mails, he said, listen, I'm sitting thousands of kilometers away from my dad who lives in Gwalior. I am servicing him sitting in Delhi. And then he said, listen, do something about it. Then later I figured out that there was another family pressure he had. That's why he was shouting on me. But these are the stresses which are building up between the two generations. Because parents belong to the earlier generation, kids are living somewhere else, and it's creating huge sort of a title of impatient patients. Now, let's come back to my own journey. And as I told you, I've been here for 12 years. This Dr. Lal Path Lab started from Delhi many years back, about almost 60, 65 years. And I'm not talking about very far off. It's just about 2000. We only had one lab. Today we have 200 labs and 1,500 collection centers. In 2000, there was only one lab in Delhi. Patient will come in the morning to the lab, give a blood sample, wait there for 1 hour. There was absolutely no queue management. He doesn't even know when his turn is going to come. And then comes back in the evening to collect the report. Many times the report is not even ready. He's asked to come maybe tomorrow. Absolutely no complaints. He's the happiest guy. My own time as a CEO of the company was spent not on servicing the patient. It was spent on making sure my quality is right, my systems are right, I've got the right reagents, everything else. Then there came a time between 2000 and 2015 when at least one part of the visit was stopped. He will come and give the blood sample, but the report now will go online. I used to email either to his doctor or to his patient, or to him. Now, from last 2 or 3 years, even the first part of the visit is also going off. The guy doesn't even now come to the lab. I have got an app which you can book online, pay online, even see a time when the phlebotomist is going to come to your house or office, and he gets a message. He also gets a message when the report is getting uploaded. So this whole pathology business, which at least I understood 10, 15 years back, is completely taking a different shape altogether. It's like anytime, anywhere. And they expect this on the app, everything to be done. So what have we done? So to cater to this new age customer, in this new age, which is I've got an app where I allow users to book tests, authenticate themselves, pay online, everything hassle-free. So all that happens. It's not only that. I also have got some mechanism where he can view or she can view all the old reports, like a sales graphs in the way we are all used to in corporate world, can also plot the various values which has been there in the last 10 visits. And then he can have lots of questions related to this. And he can also upload all the documents, all the reports here. Everything is like, so everything has become online for this new age customer, and he or she is very happy. Now that's where we are today. I'm going to see explosion of this whole new digital stuff in healthcare. I think some speakers talked about this, some may not have talked about this. But this whole piece of genetics is going to take over virtually every parts of healthcare. Because at the end of the day, to diagnose something, we are actually going to the root cause. And this whole area of genomics is throwing up so much of information, so much of data. Just to make sense of it, this huge field of bioinformatics is exploding. And in my views, this IT or technology or artificial intelligence is going to play an extremely important role in healthcare in times to come. I think all of us in healthcare will have to prepare ourselves for a different healthcare than what we are used to. These are my initial comments, and I'll be more than happy to answer any question. Thank you.
Namaste, good afternoon. So now we are talking of the impatient patient. So let me give you a perspective of what our expectations are. So there was this innovation that was done in the mid-19th century. And this innovation was presented in the Royal College in London and in Paris. And the comment that was given to this innovation was that this particular innovation, if it is bred across the entire medical practice, you'll see the blue screen in the back. If this innovation is allowed to grow and bred, then the touch out of healthcare will be lost. And people were extremely skeptical about this innovation. But then this innovation lived, and then slowly people started trusting it. Very soon this innovation became the hallmark of the medical profession. Friends, I'm talking of the stethoscope. The stethoscope, which was accused of taking the touch away, became the hallmark of the medical profession. And Raju and Om mentioned about now a newer way of delivering healthcare, and that newer way of delivering healthcare is remote medicine. No touch, no visit. Om mentioned one part, he very diligently explained what happens to the test tube. But he actually didn't say one thing that he gets as a response from the customer when he explains that. And that is what the customer tells, all this is your problem, tell me when my results will come. We've all done that, we've all said that. So you don't tell me these test tube stories, they can go into 5 places and 10 places, but can my result come in sync? But you know what? They'll take out their app and say that place gives you this result in 2 minutes. Why can't you do this? There is an expectation. Why is the patient impatient? On the hindsight, for healthcare, I know I shouldn't be saying this, but still the thought came to my mind, so I should probably tell you what I'm thinking. The more we have impatient patients, the more we are going to have patients. Because these are the guys who create stress in the system. Look at it in terms of why is the patient impatient? It's my health. I want to be in control of my health, and who else is going to be bothered about me other than myself? I have the right to know. The patient today is a consumer. The consumer in today's world does not want a customer relationship management. He wants a customer managed relationship. I need to know what I want, and I have the right to that information. That right to that information is what is creating the demand. When you look at a healthcare system, it's a system that has a lot of human emotion. I've had this situation to me several times. I get a phone call and say, can I call back? I'm in the hospital. And immediately the response is, oh, I'm sorry. They don't realize I work in the hospital. I don't know if I should be sorry about that. I shouldn't be. It creates a sense of sympathy. When it creates a sense of sympathy, there is a feeling there's something bad that is happening to us that's going beyond our means. And so those who are dealing with us are expected to demonstrate a very high level of empathy. The comparison that is being made to the healthcare system today is if Disney ran my hospital. Disney World,